Hola, clase. Today we're going to talk about negatives in Spanish, negative sentences. So in English, we want to avoid using double negatives, things like I don't learn nothing, we don't not love Spanish, anything like I ain't going to do nothing. Those are things that we're taught to avoid in English, but in Spanish, they're okay. So the differences between English and Spanish negative sentences. There are two kinds of negative sentences in Spanish. The first one is a simple negative, and all we do is put no in front of the conjugated verb. So, él no habla español is going to be he doesn't speak English, or doesn't speak Spanish. So we've been doing this since first year. That's really easy. In English, we use a helping verb of does or do to make a sentence negative. So he does not speak Spanish. We wouldn't say in English he not speaks Spanish. Spanish doesn't use those helping verbs, so don't try to translate that do or does. You won't have any form of hacer in your sentence. We just put no right in front of the conjugated verb. Simple sentences, simple negative sentences in Spanish. So the best way to create a simple negative is to just do the normal sentence and then put a no in front of it. So Marco doesn't play soccer. First we're going to say Marco plays soccer, Marco juega fútbol. And then you just put a no juega in front of it. So, Marco no juega al fútbol. So all we're doing is putting a no in front of the conjugated verb. Super easy. Okay, so go ahead and try to do these. Go ahead and pause it. Do these four, and I'll give you the answers in a couple minutes. Okay. So, he doesn't study. You could start out with él if you wanted to be specific. So, él, I'm going to say he studies, estudia, and the no goes before. Él no estudia. We don't eat. Nosotros no comemos. They don't dance. Ellos no bailan. My mom doesn't cook. Mi madre no cocina. Okay, so that shouldn't have been too difficult for us, right? We should have been able to do these pretty easily. We've been doing these since first year Spanish. We just didn't know what they were called. Now, as you may have noticed in your vocab list, we've got some other negative words, things like nothing, no one, none, not any, neither, never, neither. Those are on the bottom left-hand corner of page 297. They're also on your vocab list. So some sentences have one negative word, some have 2, 3, or 4. There will always be one negative word in front of the verb if you're making a negative sentence. Okay, any other word in the sentence that has a negative version will be in the negative. This might seem confusing, but in English we say something like, I don't have anything. Anything is a positive word. In Spanish, we would say, I don't have nothing. All of the words in a negative sentence are going to be negative, just like all the words in a positive sentence are going to be positive. Okay. There are two ways to write negative sentences in Spanish. No in front of the conjugated verb. You may need to put another negative word after the conjugated verb. So if I wanted to say he doesn't eat, no come. We already did this one. The other way is to put a negative word just in front of the conjugated verb. So it's the difference between no estudio nunca, I never study, and nunca estudio, I never study. They both mean the same thing, they're just in different forms. So this next sentence, no trabaja nadie aquí, means that no one here works. So literally what we're saying is doesn't work, no one here. Okay? No, or we can just say no one works here. This will sum it up for you, okay? This, I think, it looks a little bit easier. So option 1, we put the no, then we have the verb, and then we have an optional negative word. So that would be like saying no estudio, and then I can say nunca after if I want to be really clear that it's I don't study ever. So I never study. This one, option 2, we would have negative word, which would be nunca, and then estudio, I never study. So double negatives are okay in Spanish. I don't study never. That's fine. In English, we wouldn't want to use that one, right? But in Spanish, it's A-okay. Okay. Now, before we get started with the next slide, I want you to look over your notes, make sure that you have both of these equations written down. That way you know how to use them. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and practice. So I'm giving you two negative words in parentheses, and you're going to need to use them. So we have estudiamos antes de un examen. And I need to make this a negative sentence using no and nunca. Go ahead and figure out where you would put them. Write the sentence down. No estudiamos nunca antes de un examen. This is us using that second formula. Or you could have said nunca estudiamos antes de un examen, where you put the negative word in front. So this would be the first form, and this would be the second with the negative word. Practica el fútbol using no and nadie. So we're trying to say no one practices football. No practica el fútbol nadie, or nadie practica el fútbol. They're just two different ways of doing the same thing. And the last one, los domingos hago mucho. So on Sundays I do a lot. We're trying to make it on Sundays I don't do anything. Los domingos no hago nada, or los domingos nada hago. Okay, translate these sentences into Spanish. Okay, we're going to go ahead and pause between each one. You're going to need to press the pause button. If you need more time, I'll give you a couple seconds, but you might need more. I never attend exercise class. No asisto nunca a la clase de ejercicios. Or you could have said, nunca asisto a la clase de ejercicios. 2. His friends don't read the newspaper. ¿Sus amigos no leen el periódico? No one scuba dives in Nebraska. No bucea nadie en Nebraska, or nadie bucea en Nebraska. Okay, so you can see that 1 and 3, we have two options because there's two negatives in that sentences, but when it's just a simple don't or doesn't, we only need the no for number 2. My friends and I never ski on the weekends. Mis amigos y yo no esquiamos nunca los fines de semana. Or your other option is, oh, that's kind of funky, all right. Mis amigos y yo nunca esquiamos los fines de semana. So you just which formula you like to use better. The no before the verb and the nunca after, or just the never before esquiamos, before the verb. Don't you write letters to your friends? Remember, we're not going to use a don't. We just use a no. And this is going to be a simple negative sentence, so we're just going to have no. No escribas cartas a tus amigos? No one ever camps in March. There's going to be two options here. Nadie no acampa nunca en marzo, or nadie nunca acampa en marzo. because we have no one, that's nadie, ever, we're going to use the never form, right, because it's a negative sentence. We take ever, turns it to never, and we need a no. Nadie no acampa nunca en marzo, or nadie nunca acampa en marzo. That one was kind of tricky, so if you got that one wrong, not the end of the world. Okay, now you've got some extra assignments on the back of your notes guide that you can get done. There are some translations that you need to do, and there are some switching from negative to affirmatives. So you're taking a negative sentence and making it affirmative. I hope you guys have a great rest of your evening or your day, depending on when you're watching this, and I'll see you in class. Have a good one.